And Aung San Suu Kyi says illegal immigration is to blame for the world's instability. All right, we begin tonight again talking about poverty, 3 days after the government released a report showing the rising number of Hong Kong citizens living in deprivation. After trying to play down the significance of the findings over the weekend, the government has today admitted it won't be able to lower the number of people living under the poverty line. In fact, Welfare Chief Lo Chi Kwong warns that by next year, the number of poor people will likely rise to over 1 million, even after an increase in government subsidies. The figure currently stands at 990,000.
Well, we still have a lot to do to improve our existing programs. And actually mentioned in our policy address in October, we will be improving our low-income working family allowance to increase very substantially, I hope, and to help to protect more low-income working families.
Troubling news. Now, the headmistress of a Tuen Mun primary school is in the hot seat over her handling of an alleged bullying case. Cha Yim-ling insists she didn't know a primary 1 student at her school had a pencil eraser forced into his ear until his parents reported the case to police last Friday. The boy, surnamed Yu, made headlines after her mother told local media her son needed surgery to remove the eraser after his classmates stabbed a pencil into his ear. Chow said Yu has been absent since last Monday, but his parents only told the school he's unhappy because he'd been beaten up. She said since finding out about the severity of the case, the school began dealing with it immediately and that a detailed report will be out on Wednesday. Well, education experts are also calling for stricter regulation of international schools in Hong Kong. Recent reports have highlighted the practice among some institutions of charging hefty fees on top of tuition. Those fees don't require government approval. Most international schools in the SAR issue debt to raise money that parents often choose to buy as a way of getting priority treatment for their children. The cost of buying this debt is often high, though, likely in the millions, with some prices rising 4,300% since 2002.
Many international schools are getting the piece of land from the government with no price at all or symbolic, for example, $1 or $10. The land is very valuable in Hong Kong. And also some of the schools get some sorts of subsidy. So that would be a problem. So they are receiving very high level of subsidy from the government on one hand, and they are also charging very high level of fees from the students. These are supposed to be not for profit making. So
But when it comes to cost, though, education still plays second fiddle to property, and once again, Hong Kong is setting records there. A residential flat on Mount Nicholson has just been sold for more than $600 million and is now Asia's priciest home by the square foot. The over 4,000 square feet apartment belongs to a joint development between the Wharf Holdings and Nan Fung. Its per square foot price managed to fetch more than $132,000, breaking a previous $105,000 record set by units at 39 Conduit Road. The same buyer also purchased another flat there for a slightly lower price. While the price of the most expensive places in Hong Kong keeps rising, so too does demand for just about every other residence here. The Housing Society has received more than 80,000 applications for its 2 new development projects, another new record for the SAR. That means 130 people will be competing for each flat under the scheme. Applicants were seen queuing as late as the evening outside the Society's offices in Tai Hang for lots that will be drawn in January. 98% of applicants are currently living in private flats but aren't getting housing subsidies. All right, news elsewhere next. Myanmar's Aung San Suu Kyi blamed illegal immigration as one of the reasons behind global instability during her opening address at the Asia-Europe Foreign Ministers meeting in Naypyidaw today. Without specifically referring to the ongoing Rohingya crisis, her speech underlined the views of many there who believe the minority population is responsible for terrorist acts in the country. Meantime, China says it's proposed a 3-phase plan to resolve the crisis, starting with a ceasefire in Rakhine State so refugees can return from Bangladesh. Foreign Minister Wang Yi says the plan has won the support of Myanmar and Bangladesh.
The history of numerous countries, including that of Myanmar, illustrates that conflict and instability cast a long and lasting shadow on a country's development. Without peace, there can be no durable progress and prosperity.
In what could be an end to the political turmoil in Zimbabwe, sources from Robert Mugabe's ruling party say the leader has agreed to resign as president after being ousted from the group. This after Mugabe defied calls for him to step down in an earlier televised address. Zachary Goldman reports.
Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe refused to resign on Sunday. The 93-year-old defied calls to quit from members of his own political party and by hundreds of thousands of protesters. The ZANU-PF party fired him as its leader after Zimbabwe's army staged an apparent takeover of the government last week. Mugabe, who has led Zimbabwe since its independence in 1980, gave a televised address Sunday acknowledging the opposition, but made no mention of his stepping down.
I, as the president of Zimbabwe and as their commander-in-chief, do acknowledge the issues they have drawn my attention to, and do believe that these were raised in the spirit of honesty and out of deep and patriotic concern for the stability of our nation.
He pledged to preside over the ZANU-PF Congress scheduled for next month, the move plunging the nation into further uncertainty.
We were expecting to hear the president say, "I've heard your concerns yesterday and I'm ready to step down." This is not what we're expecting, to hear a long speech without any results for us. The results were simple. I am stepping down. I am handing over the country to someone else.
One of the leaders of the nation's war veterans told Reuters Mugabe will now face impeachment, warning that people would take to the streets of the capital, Harare. Opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai told Reuters he was, quote, baffled by Mugabe's address. Tsvangirai added, quote, he's playing a game. He has let the whole nation down.
Now, in Germany, Angela Merkel's fourth term as Chancellor has been thrown into doubt. That's after a would-be partner made the surprise move to pull out of coalition talks. She's now set to meet the country's president and consult with him on a way to move forward. The pro-business Free Democrats withdrew from discussions on Sunday over forming a coalition with Merkel's Conservative